but helping them, just reminding them of that
Sure.
to get there is probably difficult. Growing up as the first of four and being in such large families and working in these partner relationships, whether with the folks from Knoxville who really opened the doors there at Deerfield, or in kicking off your own Hardwick and Associates and working with folks there, whether someone I think you said who's been with you more than 2 decades, or your son Ira.
Sure.
That must be exciting. But even working with family members, there's a real partnership that has to take place.
Sure, it is, and like I say, it's just little things you learn along the way that it's tried and true and proven, and no need to reinvent the wheel. You know, we know the things we need to do, and we just need to keep focused and get them done, and that's kind of where I try to use all the little things that I've learned from the people that God has put in my life to try to, push things forward and get things done that I know are important for not only the people who live here in District 106, but in the state of South Carolina, and try to attend we got a lot of conferences and things during the year to see what other states are doing. That takes up time, but like I say, it is a full-time job.
Well, let's talk about a typical day, if there is such a thing as a typical day in the House. Being up there, when you head up, and you're up there, I know you came back yesterday, so you're typically going up what day of the week? On Tuesday?
I usually leave early Tuesday morning, around 7:30 or so. It's about a 3-hour drive up there, and you get in to your office, check any messages you might have. You have a caucus meeting first thing. You go through what is on the agenda this week. Democrats meet together in a caucus, Republicans meet in a caucus, and then we generally go in noon the first day and start for the week. We have a calendar each day that says what we're going to try to accomplish, things that we're doing. We don't move all the way through it, but we take it in order. We have the rules of engagement, or rules of the House we have to deal with, and parliamentary procedures and that sort of thing. And you have committee meetings. Generally, a bill. If you have a good idea, you put it in the form of a bill. You read it across the desk one time. It gets assigned to a committee. We have 6 standing committees in the House of Representatives. I serve as chairman of Agricultural, Natural Resources, and Environmental Affairs, one that I think is very important to my district. We're the natural landscape we have here, the pressures of development, regulatory, and that sort of thing. Those are the kind of things that are really, I think, important to this area and to the state of South Carolina. But a bill may get read across the desk, comes to my committee. I assign it to a subcommittee person. They hold a public hearing for the public can come in and give their testimony about it, pro and con. Either it passes, gets amended, or we table it. And then if it moves up, it moves to a full committee, and then the full committee has to approve it, amend it, or do something with it. Then it moves back to the House floor, where it gets a second reading. And if it's non-controversial, it'll be on the uncontested calendar, and we'll vote on it one time, and then schedule it for a third reading. If it gets 3 readings, it goes over to the Senate. If it's debated, it goes on the contested calendar, and how much time you can talk about it and do this one another. But we move through a good bit of legislation pretty quickly in the House. The House kind of reacts more to the people, and the Senate kind of reacts a little slower on some things, and it's kind of a balance.
Is that by design? Is that it was all laid out that way, or?
Well, the history I went to Anglo High School now, so but the history I got there and in college is that we have a great, the best government ever designed by man, as best I can tell. We got a representative form of government, a government where your House members are 2-year terms. Senate in South Carolina has 4 years, and on the federal level, they have 6 years. And people say, well, 2 years. 2 years goes by real fast. I mean, everybody, elections and stuff, it's distracting. But when we formed this country, we decided that the House of Representatives would start the budget, that they'd take care of the money, raise your taxes. Those kind of people need to come before the public every 2 years to make sure that the man you're taxing, and he knows the man that it's basically starting tax bills. And then when you move to the Senate, they do things, governor appointments, presidential appointments, and on the federal level, they approve judges. They don't need to be as concerned on the ups and downs and day-to-day heated issues.
Right.
They need a little time to reflect on longer-term goals, justice, and making sure that we meet it out properly through our federal courts. And we're concerned with the budget, your wallet.
Civics 101, a lot of folks forget about. They wonder why someone may get 6 years between having to run for office, or even 4 years there, but you really drive home a very basic point that's really important to think about.
And we're all impatient. We want something done today. The issue of the day is, or issue du jour as we call it.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, it's sometimes frustrating that people, forget that you've been working in the trenches to get some long-term goals accomplished,
Right.
because it takes time to move things forward sometimes. And I've not seen a time in my life when it's any more contentious today in politics than it is. There's a great bit of information out on the web. People can look things up, do their own work, and anyway, it's just trying to meet their everyday issues, and saying it gets tougher and tougher. We have a small budget. I think 6 of us have 2 girls in Conway to answer the phone and handle constituent complaints. And you got to run your business if you're going to stay in office, and it's time consuming, but I find it worthwhile. There's a few things that I'd like to get done. What's in our evacuation route?
Yes.
Finish that and do some things.
You really have to develop and have some plan of action.
Sure.
You work hard on that? I mean, is that something you were constantly revising? Or?
Sure. Oh, well, me, I went up to Washington, Columbia, and I go to Washington to try to develop friends.
Right.
Try to convince them of what our needs are and why they're important, not just to us, but to the state of South Carolina. And you have to do that. You have to help people in other areas so they'll help you. And you don't compromise what you believe in and what you know is right, but you can on the issues that don't make that much difference and that sort of thing. We have roads we got to take care of and fund properly, and we're not doing a real good job of that because you can see potholes everywhere. In Horry County we are, but I'm saying across the state.
Right.
We figured out a long time ago that the state wasn't going to help us much, and so we've come up with some very innovative ideas to build 22 and 31 and repave a lot of roads, which we're in the business of doing.
Right.
But you stay busy all week up there, and as chairman of Ag and Natural Resources, I meet each Friday morning. Well, let me back up. When I ran, I was one of 124. When I got up there, I learned how to count boats as well as anybody from Horry, and they made me a whip. So that made me like 1 of 20.
Right.
You keep moving and trying to get somewhere. We had plenty of people on Ways and Means, and Ag and Natural Resources is important to us. And my goal was to try to someday become chairman of one of the 6 standing committees, because each piece of legislation that I talked about earlier goes through one of those committees.
Right.
And we sit down as a representative. You come in and you get there at your caucus meeting and they tell you what's going on. Well, 30 minutes prior to that, they tell the whips what we're working on this week. And now, as chairman of one of the committees, we meet on Thursday morning the week before to talk about what we're doing next week. So
right.
you stay a little ahead of the curve, and when you see something you think is not good for your constituents, you have a better opportunity to discuss it with 6 or 8 people and say, I don't think that's going to work for the tourism industry or for Horry County, and try to avert something that could be catastrophic for the citizens of Horry County.
This is critical, Nelson, and probably, moving into a chairmanship this early. You've been in office serving 6 years now, I believe. To think about stepping into chairmanship is probably not something that you had imagined, but for a fean years even, if ever. Well, that's pretty tremendous in and of itself.
Well, I'll be 60 this year. I'm a late bloomer. I didn't run like a lot of other people when I knew everything at 20. But anyway, it's. I went up with a goal to make a difference, not only for my district, but for South Carolina and for the future of everybody who's trying to raise a family here in South Carolina.
Well, those are great words. Great to wrap with that, but I got to ask, what is the toughest part about being up there? You've got some real pros. You've highlighted some of the best parts of this. There are some tough parts, though, of this service here.
Well, the tough thing is how it affects your family. The innuendos, about this and that and the other, and people don't understand what you're doing. People are impatient, and they're always criticizing you, and your family takes a real beating because, my family knows who I am. My wife loves me. She's put up with me for 40-some years now, and it hurts them whenever people get the wrong idea about who you are and what you're about, and that's, I guess that's the toughest thing.
Those are great words, Nelson. Thanks so much. I'm sorry we've run out of time. Great being with you this morning.
Thank you, Greg, for all you do.
Absolutely. Stay tuned for a little more All-American People with Representative Nelson Hardwick coming up next. There's so many more items we wanted to go into with Nelson. You can take the time to get to know your representative. It's real easy. NelsonHardwick.com. NelsonHardwick.com. I know you got a lot out of the last 25 minutes, but there's so much more to them. Go online, take the time, NelsonHardwick.com. Nelson, thanks again for being with us.